Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark, your favorite HEB/Dune 2 superfan podcast. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of a late start. We might have been talking in pre-show about HEB because that's just something of interest to mid-30s to late 30s men.
What's a grocery store, Josh? Good, a grocery store for our non-Texan Mavericks fans, by the way. So that's how you really know it was a dad conversation.
It was yeah, and you know, HEB, much like the Dallas Mavericks, can really take care of business when they decide to. And tonight, where the Mavericks beat the Golden State Warriors 109-99. I know they're playing without Steph Curry and Draymond. They've now won 4 straight, and of this in this 4-game win streak, this game is I really liked this one. The Heat win was pretty fun because they just needed to get on track. But this was a game where I thought the Mavericks pulled their shit together in a really functional way after kind of a touch and go first quarter. And they just closed real hard on the Warriors, and probably a defensive intensity like we haven't seen at least this season, not that I've seen that I can recall. What did you think of the game, man?
Oh yeah, I thought it was this is going to sound really silly considering what the Mavericks did right out of the All-Star break, but it kind of felt like business as usual. Mavericks take care of a bad team, which the Warriors are without Steph Curry. Like we said after the last game, after they beat Chicago, you know, that 5 out of 6, besides the Philly loss, which was a bad loss, which is, you know, that this Philly team is kind of in a similar range as this Warriors team is when they're missing their star. They're very toothless. So that was definitely a bad loss. But those other 4 losses were, you know, 2 of the best offenses in the NBA, and Cleveland, who's one of the best teams in the league, since the start of January, I think. So, you know, they lose to really good teams and they beat everyone else. And that's been the case. The Mavericks entered tonight 21-5 against below 500 teams. Warriors aren't that, but if this team without Steph played all season, they would very much be an under 500 team. So it's just kind of delightful to see this team when they have games that they should take, like, not just they should win, but this should be relatively comfortable and drama-free. I mean, they just consistently do it, and tonight was no exception. I know that there was some sweet, you know, maybe some nervy parts in like the first half, but from halftime on, I mean, this never really felt like a competitive game. So credit to the Mavericks for taking it seriously.
As Cowboy points out in the chat, you know, the Mavericks won a game without needing their 3-point shooting. They only hit 1 3 in the first half. I think that's right. And then they hit 6 for the game out of 27 attempts, and it just didn't seem to matter. There's been a lot of consternation is the right word, but there's been a lot of talk lately about how at least since kind of February 1st, the NBA has reffed games differently. Like if you were a bettor and you just pounded the unders, you'd win, I think, something like 65% of the time since All-Star break. So the NBA can lie through their teeth all they want about how the game's being called not being called differently. It just is. This game tonight was a great example of that. There was a lot of, it wasn't overt, it wasn't negative, but it was a physical contest at points. And the score reflects that, 109-99. And it was just one of these games where the Mavericks, you know, they tend to die by their 3-point shot, and they just didn't. You know, this game at the rim, I mean, how many points in the paint do the Mavericks have? Do you have that up?
I do. They had 68 points in the paint.
I would guess, and I'm not being facetious here, I would guess 30 of those points came off of dunks. The Mavericks had so many dunks. I was really shocked.
They were 24 of 30 in the restricted area. That's 80%. And they were 9 of 14 in the paint outside of the restricted area. That's 64%. League average in that spot is 44. Yeah, they killed it in the paint. This felt like an almost carbon copy of the Bulls game, except the Warriors had a little bit more spine than I think the Bulls did the other night.
Sure.
Offered up a little bit more resistance, at least on the defensive end. But yeah, Kirk, I've got the stat to end all stats for this 4-game winning streak. Would you take a care to guess what the Mavericks 3-point shooting percentage is as a team during this 4-game win streak?
33%.
You somehow went over. It is 29.3%.
Jeez.
They're 39 of 133 from 3 in this 4-game winning streak. And I will not look this up yet. Maybe you'll look it up later, but I will wager to guess that this is probably the best the Mavericks have played over a 4-game stretch while shooting under 30% from 3 as a team since the Luka Doncic era started. Really unbelievable when you think, especially last season. Like, I know they didn't win a lot of games last season, and funny enough, the Mavericks just matched their season win total from last season tonight. But they did not get blown out a lot, despite the fact that they lost a lot of games. And they didn't because they were just consistently making 17, 18, 19, even 23s almost every game. And when they didn't, that's when they did get blown out. So the fact that this team has so quickly kind of reversed that trend now, still a little early. I mean, I think early in the season, they were still kind of 3-point happy in terms of their win-loss record. But since the trade deadline, it feels like they've been winning much differently with the additions of PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. They now have a true center rotation to get them through 48 minutes. Obviously, those two have some issues against some of the better teams that can space the floor with a shooting big like Indiana or Boston. But not every team is Indiana or Boston. And when the Mavericks play against a team with a weak front line, like Golden State is without Draymond Green, like Chicago without Patrick Williams, and they're basically playing like 4 guards and Nikola Vucevic, who's having a horrible season, they're feasting, man. They're absolutely feasting. It's been really fun to watch. And Luka had a pretty pedestrian game, and it never felt in doubt. Like, that's a pretty cool thing that's a rare thing for this team over the last 6 years. So
yeah. Well, and we'll circle back to the Luka. He exited the game with a apparent hamstring injury. Jason Kidd says as of now, they're unsure whether Luka will make the trip to Oklahoma City. I'm really curious to see what happens there because, I think Luka always wants to play. Hamstring stuff is obviously something you have to be very careful with, even for a more floor-bound player. This hamstring stuff sucks. It's way to go. But there's a lot of really positive things I think we could touch on with this game. I think the thing I want to start with would be I'd been sort of looking for Kyrie Irving to have a really strong performance for several games now. Now you go look at his box score and you'd say, well, Kyrie's played some really good games. What are you talking about? This really felt like an element of the Kyrie experience that we were getting in January when Luka was out. 23 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds. It was a fun game. His three didn't go down either, just like the rest of the teams. But he was playmaking in a way we've not gotten to see very much of, just because of how teams have been guarding the Mavericks. And I don't know, I like the experience. 10 assists to 1 turnover, pretty nice.
Yeah, by far his most assists in the last 2 months. His ties his season high for assists.
Oh, wow.
He did it 3 previous times, so this is only the 4th time he's had at least 10 assists. So that's a big deal because we've been kind of wondering, especially during the 5 of 6 losing stretch where the offense was kind of dying on a vine whenever Luka went to the bench. It was like, I know that Kyrie has historically played, he played with LeBron, played with Durant, played with James Harden for the last 5 to 6 years. Even in Boston, he had some decent supporting cast there. He's still really good, a really good passer, and it was just kind of bizarre.
Excellent point guard. It's just
go ahead.
I really like seeing what I think, and it feels this way to me. I feel like he enjoys being the secondary playmaker more than the primary playmaker, which is where Dante Exum can really come in handy, but give him the chance to run an offense like he did tonight, and it's just you get some nice results. I mean, it's obviously I don't expect Kyrie to throw up 10 assists every game with the role that they have in the offense, but he threw an oop to Daniel Gafford that was like just breathtaking shit. I don't know. I really like good passing games. I mean, the Mavericks as a whole had 30 assists on 44 made field goals. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and considering all the missed threes that they had that many assists, and they still shot 53% from the floor. So like they were still killing it. They just didn't. I mean, if they made their threes, they would have scored like 140 points tonight. Yep. So the threes really do, and the threes and the turnovers really do mask like what was otherwise a pretty good offensive game. Yeah, the thing with Kyrie, I think, what was really nice about tonight is that when Luka went out of the game, so I think he went out of the game with about 5 minutes left, maybe a little over 5 minutes left. And obviously the game, like the Mavericks had a double-digit lead. I think it was 16 points with 5 minutes left. That should be a win, even if you're just, running out the clock, so to speak. But the thing that was nice was we've seen with Luka off the floor and Kyrie on, sometimes Kyrie really likes to defer and likes the space and staying in the corner. Not because he can't. He just
spots.
Yeah, and he's like one of the best catch and shoot shooters ever. So it's not like the worst thing in the world for him to be spotting up, even when Luka's off the floor. But he was very assertive. Like he was running the offense. It wasn't necessarily, he was bringing the ball off the floor. He was getting he was getting them into their sets. He was running the primary pick and roll. Like it was good to see him kind of take control of the ball down the stretch in the fourth quarter. And basically, even if Luka, we'll see if Luka is really hurt or if it was more of a precautionary thing. It was really good to see because if Luka doesn't play tomorrow, he's going to have to be like that from opening tip to the end of the game if they want to have a chance to win. So yeah, he was really assertive, and it wasn't necessarily like when we say he was really assertive, that doesn't mean he just needs to get up like 25 shots. Like it's just, can you command the ball? Can you control the ball? Because you're a really talented offensive player and good things happen when the ball's in your hands. So, and that's what happened tonight. Only, the 10 assists to 1 turnover. Yeah, that's really good.
You got me thinking. I don't want to spoil my man's work, but there's a friend of mine. His name's Jared Dubin. He's written all over the place, but he runs a Substack, which I pay for it because I try to support my friend's good work. But he offers elements of a free version called Last Night in Basketball. I'm posting it in the chat, and he is eventually going to put up this post on movement shooting versus stationary shooting. You actually
did I inspire him?
You specifically inspired him. He told me, he was like, and that was why I was like, you should message him the other day.
I need him.
But he's got some data on Kyrie. This is why I was kind of gushing about Kyrie after the last game, where the advanced data on Kyrie's shooting at the moment is just because he doesn't do super high volume. I don't think a lot of people notice it, but it's laugh out loud funny. It's like approaching Klay Thompson level chicanery, like at his peak, where it's just, this is the kind of shots he's getting in the offense. But what I like about Kyrie playing off ball, and I'll be looking forward to seeing it tomorrow night if Luka is out, is the Mavericks don't have anyone that's really dynamic off the dribble. I mean, PJ Washington tries and he has moments, but I don't like where he has to be dynamic off the dribble versus can take advantage of certain situations. So if Exum runs the point and Kyrie can still be kind of the release valve and the playmaker versus the guy who starts the Mavericks weird non-offense, their high school stuff. So I don't know, that should be fun. Where are we at on time? We're already at 14 minutes. All right, there's lots of fun stuff that I think Josh and I are going to circle back to in this game, but I'm going to take a minute to ask you guys to go ahead and like the video stream if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter. If you have that ability, that sort of thing very much helps us. If you are here at YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the show. There's plenty of things that you can do, some of which I don't understand, that will actually notify you when we go live. We go live after every game. We try to do this within a few minutes of the game ending. Tonight was not one of those nights because Josh and I were talking about HEB. But as the year goes on, we'll get a little better. I'm going to host a secondary show tonight, which I think you guys should participate in. And that way you can hang out and talk and ask questions and that sort of thing. If you're listening on an audio stream, the next day, if you're listening here on Thursday before the Thunder game, go ahead and shoot me an email, give us a review. 5 stars is preferred, but if you like making fun of me, I do see those 0-star reviews where people will pick something very mean to say, but those make me laugh. Thanks so much for supporting the show. I'm going to cut right now on the audio stream to some ads, and Josh and I will be right back. So, what if I told you that Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively have combined over 2 professional basketball games to shoot 91% from the floor? They are 32 of 35 over the last 2 games.
That's nuts. I mean, we're watching it and it's like not shocking, like the number, because and the misses are obviously, the couple of misses are from Lively. Like, I don't even remember the Lively misses. Like,
he got blocked on one and then caught his own block and calmly reversed dunked. Okay. I just can't emphasize how rare that is for a young big to be this okay. And when I mean okay, I mean shit doesn't seem to frazzle him.
No, it doesn't. And I think it's really cool that he is coming off the bench and really hasn't skipped a beat. Like, I think there was some concern from the fan base, like, what would him coming off the bench do to maybe his psyche? He was theoretically hitting the rookie wall. He had kind of had a couple of meager performances stringed together during that 5 out of 6 losing stretch. Had some bad matchups against teams that can really stretch him out and away from the rim. And like we've said all the time, like, he did not guard anyone at Duke, even closely resembling like a Miles Turner or Kristaps Porzingis, or guarding in space. Like, he had to guard Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in the pick and roll. It's Cleveland, like, that's just tough. Those were some tough matchups for him. And for him to kind of come back from that, play against some teams that are small, that he has the advantage with, and assert that advantage while coming off the bench and not letting that mess him up at all. It's impressive to go along with Gafford, who I guess is not going to miss a shot for the rest of his life. And we're going to be telling our grandkids about the NBA player who shot 90% for his career, because this is crazy. He's up to 33 in a row. I don't know when he's missing his next one.
It's very difficult to contextualize this sort of stat because do you have, you don't listen to any podcasts. What am I talking about? There is there's a really enjoyable show. Like, this is if you just like basketball to like it. Jason Concepcion and Shea Serrano run a show called 6 Trophies that they do once a week. And Shea Serrano talked about, he's like, if I go 9 for 9, there's no way I'm finishing 9 for 9. I'm just going to keep shooting. I'll finish 9 for 26. But if I start off like that, you can't convince me to not shoot. And it's just watching Gafford. It's like he's extra locked in because, number one, he's very aware of the streak, which is
after the Chicago game. Yes, for sure. But during the Chicago game, he was figuring that part out.
He got the ball like 3 times in sort of like the Dirk short corner area with a face-up opportunity and did not look at the rim. Now, to be candid, I'm fine with that, because if he wants to pass to a cutter, like he found Dante Exum at one point in the game for like a nice little cut in the lane for a layup, all the better. Because one of the things we've criticized Gafford for earlier in his brief Mavericks tenure is kind of his willingness to just shoot whatever is near the rim. And I think it's making him a little bit more of a, not necessarily a threat, but it's like, I think teams expect him to go up with everything. So, if he comes across and actually, beats this Wilt Chamberlain record, it's going to be nothing short of amazing, because this is just one of these stats that I wouldn't have ever considered, because basketball players miss shots. I sat, before the game, I was telling everybody I was a little late to posting the game thread at Mavs Moneyball, because I'm outside with Parker and that's my 8-year-old son. And like, I was trying to teach him the Mikan drill, which didn't go so well, but we were having fun. And it's like, just watch, like, doing anything 33 times in a row feels impossible. And yet he's just doing this in a professional basketball game. So I hope it happens. I really do. It'll be a silly, fun thing to talk about, because it ultimately doesn't matter, but it's really fun.
Beating Wilt Chamberlain at any NBA stat is worthy of celebration and praise. And beating Wilt Chamberlain at a stat involved around like scoring buckets or shooting around the basket is doubly so, because that guy owns just about every ridiculous scoring record there is in the NBA. And I'm honestly like, if you would have told me that the record was like 50 in a row and it was belonged to Wilt, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks, because
Sure.
he was outrageous. Like, he was like a myth. Like, he was so outrageously good for his era. So yeah, I think he's going to get it, because at this point he's very like he is not taking shots that are not like it'll only happen if he like boofs a dunk attempt or something, because he's very clearly going to get to that 36, only take shots he knows he can make. And then maybe, we'll see we'll see the pressure maybe rain off of a little bit. Not that it looks like there's a lot of pressure on him right now, but he's very clearly, like you said, he's aware, and he should be. And by the way, like, he hasn't necessarily, like, I haven't really seen him necessarily pass up looks that he normally would take. Like, yeah, he made that pass to the cutter, but you typically don't always want Gafford like doing anything other than what he's doing right now, which is catching and finishing, opportunities from his playmakers. So
Yep.
That's the nice thing about it, is even if he is a little extra cautious, it's not really hurting the team, because this is kind of what he does anyway. And defensively, he's probably played his 4 best defensive games since he's come to the Mavericks have probably come all in this winning streak. Definitely the matchup's better. And this is why, like, we got to talk about, I don't know how we talk about this without, I don't want to make anyone mad, but we have to talk about, like, there's just like context is so important when there's so many games, there's so many different teams, there's so many different matchups, because there was all that noise during the 5 of 6 when the Mavericks were, losing 5 of 6 and Gafford wasn't playing a lot. And it was like, he needs to play more. This is part of the reason they're losing. And it's like, guys, like, he's kind of contributing to the losing, even though he's not playing a lot. Like, that's why he's not playing a lot, because he wasn't playing well defensively, or the scheme that the Mavericks were asking to play was not, working. Like, it's not like he was he's not like he was throwing up 10 and 11 in 15 minutes and then the team was not closing with him. Like, he was, for the most part, not playing well defensively in those losses. Now, if you want to peg that on the coaching staff, that's fine, but something needed to change. And so there's kind of this sense that, like, I think the Mavericks are undefeated when he starts, and I think I saw like he's 2-4 when he comes off the bench, and everyone's pointing at that, like, see, like, he needs to start, and it's like, no, like, he just ran into some bad matchups, like the Pacers and the Celtics, and even the Cavaliers to a degree, with the way that they run offense. It's difficult for him to guard, because he, at least so far, has not shown himself to be like a switching big. Now, if you think that he can switch, and that's on the Mavericks coaching staff for not allowing him to, fine. But just with how the Mavericks play with Lively and Gafford, it was just tough for him. And now, the Heat, the Warriors without Draymond, like the Bulls, the Pistons, like all teams that Gafford, like, much better matchup, and they look better. And it's like, so it's not necessarily like play Gafford and start him a lot and they'll win. It's just play the matchups right. Like, there are going to be games where Lively or even Maxi Kleba are going to be more advantageous to you over Gafford. And that's not a slight against Daniel Gafford. It's just maximizing your players to the best that you can, and maximizing your chances to win a game. And, not every team is going to be like the Warriors or the Bulls, who don't, the Warriors starting center basically is a rookie without Draymond. And then the Bulls, Vucevic is having a terrible year, and they basically have no power forwards. Like, yes, of course, play Gafford a lot in those matchups, because he's going to dominate in the paint against those kind of teams. So again, I don't know. I'm not trying to be critical of Gafford necessarily. It's just more, there's just more to it than start him, play him 26 minutes, you're going to win.
Well, and I got some grief from people who know things about my take where I'm like, you just can't convince me that Maxi's supposed defensive prowess is more important to what Dallas tries to do in some of these lineups than Gafford and Lively's offensive functionality.
I absolutely,
like, Maxi has been so fucking bad He's just been so, but here's the thing. There's gonna be a moment where the Mavericks need Maxey.
Haven't that been what we've been saying for like the last 3 years? Is like, it's not that we need Maxey to necessarily go away. It's just their only good basketball can't be reliant on him playing.
I mean, Mark Followell roasted the guy. That doesn't happen. Did you hear that? Were you there? He's like he pointed out how bad Maxey's been in the podcast.
On offense, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's only scored eight points this month. So, and he only played 8 minutes tonight, which is fine. Yes. Like, they didn't need him. Right. There's going to be a game where they need him. So that's kind of my point.
I don't know. It's not a silly conversation because it's going to be the sort of thing that comes up in a big game. Sorry, I keep looking to the side because there's a mosquito hawk flying around my room. Oh, no. Things are nuts this time of year. Good Lord. It's just gonna be a thing is where we settle on it. I'm trying to look at like the only other like box score, and this is not an oddity. PJ Washington had a phenomenal game. He was 4 of 5 inside the 3-point line to go along with 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 blocks. The block party the Mavericks had tonight was hysterical. 13 blocks on the night. And
Alfred had 7.
PJ just having a really solid. I mean, solid doesn't even do it justice. He had a great game. I had a really fun one with regards to this. So
the PJ thing is interesting because his offense has really not been there in a way that I kind of thought it would. He's making the shots that I think he needs to make in the paint, but his 3-point shot has basically been non-existent. And that was happening in Charlotte, so it's not too terribly surprising, but there's always, you hope there's going to be the Luka bump with the shooting. But the thing with PJ that he's showing, and this is like, why he's been such he's having, sorry, I'm kind of getting, ahead of myself, but like comparing him to Grant Williams, which might not be fair, but the reason why he's able to have these winning, impactful games, despite the fact that he's not shooting or scoring consistently, which, Grant also wasn't shooting or scoring consistently, is just his defensive fit and his defensive level has been astronomically higher at that 4 spot than what Grant Williams was giving the team for most of the season. Like, his ability to play big and rotate and guard in one-on-one situations, and when they don't ask him to help off the strong side corner for 3, which I feel like has changed a little bit since they had that last loss to the Pacers. That overhelping seems to have been stamped out a little. His defense has been dynamite otherwise. Yep. And this is kind of like what we talked about the trade. Like, it was like he has the tools. He absolutely has the tools. And hearing from, I think Zach Lowe on his podcast said from what he heard, he wants to be coached. Like, it's not an issue of him not working hard or not wanting to be a coach. It was just he kind of gave his poor effort on a bad team, which kind of happens. It snowballs when you're on a bad team like the Hornets.
I still think he shoots the ball like I question his vision.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
It is like early. It sometimes his shot attempts make Sean Marion's shot look pretty. Like, it is a look out below type instance because he'll just miss. Like, he'll shoot from the wing and it'll be gorgeous, and then he'll shoot from the corner, and I question his depth perception.
Does he need new contacts?
Something.
Does he need contacts? Yeah.
Something, man.
It's weird, but at least that's going to be a problem in the playoff. Like, he can't shoot 29% from 3 in a playoff series. That'll be tough. So they'll need to figure that part out and maybe move him around the floor, like you've been talking about, get him in those better positions to score in the paint, because that floater feels pretty automatic, when he's going to the basket. But defensively, like, he's showing when he's not doing the overhelping, which I think is not him, that's a scheme thing. Like, his defense is like end of game, high leverage, playoff level, playoff caliber. Like, he's really playing well defensively.
Did Josh Green continue to play in garbage time? How in the world is he a -8 on this game? I thought he had a nice.
He finished the game.
Okay.
He finished the game.
Then I'm ignoring.
No, he had a nice game. He had a very nice game.
Trying to think if there's anything else to note. Is there?
I don't know. Exum off the bench, 6 assists, 1 turnover. Beautiful. Like, just continuing to be like right around that 4 to 6 assist mark, which is just huge for the bench. Tim Hardaway Jr. can't shoot, but like, it's It's interesting. Like, I don't even remember. What was the record last year when he shot under 40% from three? It was bad. And he's been like under 35 for almost 2 months now. And the Mavericks are like 12-5, basically. Like, I think it goes to show like the trade deadline improvements and kind of how this team has kind of shifted a little bit, that they're able to survive this. Like, and he's not playing a lot. Like, I think that's another big thing from this game is that it feels like to me the rotation feels right. Like the starting lineup, get nitpicky with Gafford or Lively. Maybe there's a matchup where Lively starting makes more sense, but both of those guys playing over 20 minutes, like that's really all you need. But like everything else feels like it's falling into place. Like putting Derek Jones Jr. in for Josh Green in the starting lineup was massive because Josh Green just cannot guard screens to save his life. And I feel like in a starting lineup to start games when you're going against the other team's best players, and so many teams run, pick and roll with their dominant guard, like having Jones on the floor to start games makes so much more sense. Green seems to play much better off the bench. He gets a little bit more touches. He seems to have just seems to be a little bit of a weight off his shoulders. Like Hardaway's minutes are down, Kleba's minutes are down, Exum's minutes are creeping back up. Like it feels like they're kind of locking in the rotation of the lineup right now, and that's what you want to see in mid-March as you're trying to make the playoff push.
Well, I couldn't be more delighted. The Mavericks play Oklahoma City tomorrow night. That game is going to be really interesting because if Luka Doncic doesn't play, that's going to be an uphill battle. But I do think the Mavericks, the way they've been crushing in the paint, is going to be pretty interesting. I still
Gafford
think
Gafford ate him up last time.
Right. So. I don't want to act like it's a game the Mavericks throw their hands up. It's just going to be a kind of a more calculated, interesting game. Then on Sunday they play the Denver Nuggets. So these two contests, are uphill battles, and the Mavericks could very easily go 0-2, which is why this 4-game win streak feels so useful, because it's the right now there's a lot going on in NBA action. The Los Angeles Lakers, who just are on. And look, man, I know how this shit works, but I get so tired of every fucking podcast being, how could the Lakers do da-da-da? Anybody that's been the 10 seed in the time that we've had the play-in tournament hasn't gone anywhere. Like I'm pretty sure they haven't made the playoff. Like it's just this constant like drumbeat for the Lakers, where it's like they've had incredibly healthy seasons from LeBron and AD, and they still kind of suck. It's largely, and hear me out here, it's because they got Christian Wood, and every team he goes to becomes worse. It's really magical. I love it so much. This is a big win for the box score or for the play-in folks too, because the Kings are just hanging out on the back end of the play-in. Like it's of value.
And the Kings are going to win against the Lakers tonight. So yeah.
Right. So we're kind of looking, all of us. So New Orleans has 39 wins. Phoenix has 38 wins. Sacramento has 37 wins. Dallas has 38 wins. We're going to have 3 teams with 38 wins here very shortly. The Mavericks, I think, still have 2 games against the Kings. Kings are just not a good matchup for the Mavericks, the way they play basketball. So it's really fun. Like, I know certain people hate the play-in, but this is it's a great way. It makes this part of the season feel meaningful. And if you're a younger basketball fan, it's kind of hard to contextualize that.
This is normally the dog days.
Yeah, unless we're talking like prime Western Conference where the Suns missed the playoffs with 48 wins. Right. It's a different world.
Because usually those 9-10 teams are, and the 11, because now 11 has something to play for. They're done right now. Like they're not doing anything. So you've basically got like maybe 12 to 15 teams at this point of the season were really trying.
That's right.
Which made it really difficult back in the day to watch consistently.
Okay, so I'm going to let Josh go edit and post stuff to MavsMoneyball.com because he is an excellent editor and I am really bad at spelling. I saw something, this is really off topic, but whatever. I saw our colleague Brent sent me this story about how these kids got punished for using Grammarly. And I'm just like, I wouldn't be able to function without using Grammarly. Like, I don't know how, like, I am not an editor. I am a manager. I need these things to work. And it just killed me. But all right, so this has been fun. Josh and I'll be back late tomorrow night after the Oklahoma City game. Thanks so much for hanging out, Josh. And everybody that's hanging out in here, I will be right back to start our secondary live show. You see the link. It should be pinned into the chat. You can join that show. Those of you who are listening on audio only, look for that show to post right around lunchtime. Everybody else, have a great night, and go Mavs. Mavs fans, thanks for hanging out. I'm Kirk Henderson. You are joining our secondary live show called Mavs Party. This is an episode of our podcast and live show where you can join and participate. Tell me your basketball takes. Tell me your TV takes. Tell me anything you'd really like to talk about. We already got two folks waiting. If you're watching on the live stream, there is a pinned link to a StreamYard link, which is a really easy application. You click into it, you can access it from your phone, you can access it from your computer. If you would like to show us your pretty face, you can do so. If you don't want to, I'm not going to hold it against you. I, after all, have a face made for radio. I'm joined first by my man Brian, who is a loyal listener and friend. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Brian. What's going on? You're muted. Great start.
There I am. I caught that
What's going on?
I was like, no, I'm doing well. How about you?
It's good. It's 4 games or winning is nice. Winning emphatically is extra nice because I really like how Dallas took control defensively. This felt like a game filled with no excuses, and I this is a silly thing, but I've enjoyed the kind of refreshingly honest commentary from the Mavs guys lately. They cooked Maxi Kleba pretty good at an early point in the game, which made me laugh. And one of the things I wish I may see if I can suggest this. I would love it if Mark Followell, for every block of a Daniel Gafford, instead of like screaming something about the landlord, because one time he's like, Daniel Gafford blocks it out to Garland. Like, what if he referenced every little tiny like city and village in the Dallas-Fort Worth area over the course of the season? Because there's a ton of them.
That's in his bag. Yeah,
that's exactly right. It would just be a hilarious bit. Like, he started doing it when Gafford was blocking shots, or maybe it was Lively blocking shots out in Toronto, where he just kept like referencing various provinces. I don't know. I enjoyed this game a lot.
Yeah, no, it was pretty fun, except for like the not making shots part. But the defense was awesome, and it needed to be against a team without its 2 best playmakers.
Yep.
Two of 3, I guess, if you still count Chris Paul. This was not a good Warriors team that we played, but there's still a team capable of beating bad teams and teams that underestimate them. So the fact that we didn't, and the fact that we took care of business on the defensive end, our bigs did exactly what they were supposed to in the paint. They let Kevon Looney and Andrew Wiggins know this isn't 2022 anymore. You're not going to get anything sweet in here. Everything you're going to get in here is going to be hard. And that's precisely what Gafford and Lively did. The 1 for 13 Maxi shot in the middle of the game was very funny. Luka was annoying me, like taking 14-foot fadeaways over like 6'3" dudes, right? Then eventually he pulled his head out of his ass and started going to the rim, and he got fouled and hit a couple free throws. Next thing you know, a 3 falls. Imagine that.
That 3 was pretty too. I mean, the Mavericks were not getting any friendly bounces on their 3s tonight. Josh Bowe just shared a link that essentially, I mean, he pointed this out in the last thing, but the Mavericks are shooting 29% from 3 during their 4-game winning streak, which is really something.
Yeah, no, it's funny because, and I think Dwight from 21 going on 7-7, it was either him or SJ that pointed out We were always talking about how we wanted them to learn to win without relying on threes. This isn't quite what I had in mind, but as well as the defense was going, I trust that the shots are going to start falling again. Maybe, there's even more lineup tinkering that needs to happen. Maybe it's throw Jaden out there a little bit earlier just for 2 or 3 minutes, see if he can get
Sure.
hot, get something going. Maybe Tim, catches fire again at some point in one of these short stretches he's playing. Maybe it's PJ only shooting above the breaks when he shoots from the corners. It's a hazard to the people sitting behind the backboard. I don't know what it is, but I know it's gonna regress positively to the mean at some point. And until then, we just kind of gotta hold on and keep playing defense. Defense looked good today. That's all I could really ask for.
Yeah.
Defend, do your work early, get into the post. If you got a smaller guy on you, go get to the paint and seal. Luka will find you, and that's precisely what happened. Except today it was Kyrie.
Yeah.
So.
Which was nice to see. It's really nice to see a really he didn't have like a start to finish amazing game, but he really helped close the game all the way out. And we've not seen a lot of fourth quarter Kyrie lately, which is fine. Don't expect it every game, but he was really magical in the second half tonight.
I think in the first he had 7 points and a couple assists, and that's kind of all we really need from you. We don't need you to. We just need him to show up and be a part of the game and participate in the first half and really the first quarter. And he did that tonight, and it made a whole hell of a lot of difference in a game where we didn't make any shots. We had easy open looks that we were missing, right? And Golden State was just keeping it close and keeping it close and keeping it close. And instead of hanging around, if we didn't get those 7 points in the first quarter, they could have had that lead the entire time. And then we're having to make up ground like we usually do in the second half of the game. But because he showed up and he participated, and Derrick Jones Jr., the drives were popping for him, right? Daniel Gafford was getting whatever he wanted in the paint because he is quicker than Looney and bigger than literally everybody else that they threw out there. We were able to hold on and maintain a tiny lead, and then once some shots started falling, it was over.
Yep. It's nice. It's nice. Well, are you looking forward to our first late game in like a million years tomorrow night?
I am not. I won't lie to you. I'm gonna want to get some sleep, but I'll stay up and watch it. I'll say this: it might be starting late. It's gonna end right on time for me because if Luka's not playing and these boys get rolled up out of here, I'm out by the third quarter.
See, it's so nice. Like sometimes I envy other people, whereas I do this every now and again. I'm not, we got 20 people that write for Mavs Moneyball, but so we spread the work around. Everybody does a great job picking up, but sometimes I'll try to take the really shitty stuff so other people don't have to. And I signed up for that game tomorrow night to write the recap and then do this stuff. And like, I will be regretting my decision about now tomorrow night because it'll be fourth quarter. Mavs win or lose. I love the game, but it's like still having to churn out 800 words and do this stuff. Granted, I big picture like it, but like in the moment, I'm like,
what's the start time tomorrow?
9 TNT game.
Oh, you'll regret that by 9:45.
Oh yeah, and then we'll get to hear whatever dumbassery the guys who don't watch the Mavericks say, where it's like, well, I need Luka to be passing the ball more, and then they show his stats and he has 12 assists a game. It's like
don't let the Mavericks have the lead going into the half. Yeah, in that game. Oh boy,
the chat thinks you're lying. Chat thinks you'll be awake. You might be awake, but you're not going to be. You're not going to be doing this. So, well, my man, thank you so much for kicking us off.
Of course, brother. Thanks for having me.
Talk soon. All right, so I see a name in the chat I don't recognize is Drew. We're going to bring up Drew next, and that's kind of how I like to do this, guys. If I don't see you as often in here, I'm going to bring up names I don't recognize. Hope my regulars who participate don't hurt or don't get bothered by that, but I want to encourage people to join and talk about basketball. So, Drew, how you doing?
Hey, Kirk, doing good. Hear me?
I can. You sound real good.
All right.
You have a much more comfortable looking chair than I have.
Well, I understand your pain. So I've got an 11-week-old here.
See, look at you joining. See, yeah, this is see right now, guys. What Drew's doing is really the epitome of multitasking. Congratulations, Drew. How you doing?
Doing good and looking forward to that 9 p.m. start time.
You're gonna be up. You're gonna be up anyways.
That and Arlington, born and raised, but I'm out in Washington State now. And these,
Okay, so that's a 7. Yeah, that's an okay start time for you then.
Exactly, 7 o'clock Centrals. I'm like trying to get home from work to catch the game. But I cannot believe we are able to win a game shooting the threes and Luka only having 21 points. Like the box score does not make any sense. It absolutely doesn't. I don't know. Like, again, astounding having such good center rotation. And also, I did not realize how terribly, terribly cooked Klay Thompson is.
Poor guy, man. He's talked about it this year, but he looks like a guy who's torn his ACL and his Achilles.
I mean, just it's you just think back from 5 years ago, and you're like, that guy would just slay.
I mean, it's kind of the problem with guys' ability to play so long is when things like this happen, when injuries rob guys, it makes earlier elements of their careers not make any sense. I mean, you get a guy like LeBron James who just so skews everything. And then there's Klay, who is a human being. He is an actual human, which is hard to understand compared to these guys that are superheroes. And he's had some pretty amazing games this year, but they're just games like tonight where he looks broken.
Yeah. It's just it was astounding. It's been, I've seen enough Warriors, during the peak, but watching it tonight, it was like, holy shit. But again, I am just like, oh my God, the amount of athleticism, the fact that we can win games without shooting threes is I'm excited for this team. We just got to crack it up to 6th. I still think there's one little piece missing somewhere. A little bit more length at the 3.
Sure.
I'm afraid of the Clippers.
I am too, but did you see what Kawhi Leonard did last night?
He's out injured.
So he had back spasms, and they kept calling it something cute. But I kid you not, the dude just left. He didn't go to the training room. He left, which I couldn't love the decision more. It's like, who among us hasn't wanted to just leave work? I'm gone. Bye, guys. It killed me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Kawhi, you never know. But that all said, like, that's the one team that I'm just like, the length and just the switchability is weird. But if we can get to 6, I like it'll be a fun postseason. I'm not, don't know if we got everything we need to go all the way, but it'll be a fun postseason. So
I think that's right.
Yeah. Anyhow, that was my quick little bit.
True.
Keep on
man.
rocking.
Well, good luck to you. I hope the baby sleeps. Mine has been the last week. Both of my children have really bad acid reflux. Really neat parent talk. Sorry, guys. This is my show. I'll do what I want. And like acid reflux, one of those things, it hurts in adults. I imagine it hurts children like crazy. The younger one, when we put him down, he screams like Luka Doncic on a no call. And it's been really rough for like a week. And we're taking him to a specialist soon. And they're probably gonna be like, well, it's a phase. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna die. We need to sleep. But that's, kids are great. Good luck to you, man. I hope you come back soon. All right.
All right. Thank you, Kirk.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to take a quick minute, probably less than a minute. If you guys are already in this show, if you could go ahead and like the stream, the YouTube guys, I would really appreciate it. If you could also consider subscribing to the show. There's a way to get alerted when we go live automatically. I try to post all that stuff, but I don't really know enough about how YouTube works. If you could consider on the audio stream sending me a review. You guys are always welcome to shoot me emails. A number of fans have found emails over the last few weeks, and I've enjoyed talking basketball with you guys. This is my real job as a Salesforce administrator. I'm kind of boring. I like talking basketball, and also, frankly, doing basketball stuff makes me better at my day job because it allows me to use different parts of my brain. Shout out to Paolo Patty Up that says this podcast hate Luka. Paolo, I'm going to tell you a story for a minute. In the 10 games into Dennis Smith's rookie year, I was blindingly drunk watching the Mavericks, which happens. The Mavericks, like 2017 or 2018 Mavericks, really, no, it's 2017 Mavericks. Yeah, October, really not good, like painful. And I proclaimed it's like October 2017. I still have the tweet. that if the Dallas Mavericks wound up drafting Luka Doncic, that Dirk Nowitzki would come back for his 21st season. And then I just basically, because I'd been watching Luka tape since he was 15. I was like, I need this man in the Mavericks. Even still, I had no idea he would be like this. So this show loves Luka Doncic. This show loves the Dallas Mavericks, and that's why we're here. So welcome to the show, Paolo. All right, coming up next is my man Doe. What's going on, Mr. Dang? How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Is that a Tennessee shirt that you have on?
Yeah. In my job for the DoD previously, I traveled to a lot of different states, and I always try to get, a jersey or a shirt from that state or a hat or some other thing, And I love Knoxville. Knoxville, man, it's gorgeous. Great town. Beautiful town. The square is amazing.
I love college towns like that. Well, the only reason it made me think there was an instance earlier this week in the women's SEC tournament where a woman for South Carolina beat the Tennessee women's basketball team on a game-winning 3-pointer. That was one of the craziest shots I've seen in basketball because there's just no one near her because she shouldn't have shot the ball. She was like a center who doesn't take threes, and she won the game with it. And it was just everybody mobbed her because it was like it'd basically be like Eric Dampier shooting a 3 and winning a game for the Dallas Mavericks. It was that kind of silly. But what do you think of tonight's game? What's going on?
Well, I got a lot of thoughts. First of all, you could see that we can be successful when we don't have the 3. And what still kind of annoys me is the coach not recognizing that, hey, if we're not hitting threes, teach your players to give them a pump fake and make a move to the basket. Attack. You see how great we were when we're getting the balls to the centers. Even a mid-range game, normally that's not a high percentage shot. But if you look at Kyrie and you look at Luka, those are above average humans making those mid-range shots. It just would behoove them to vary the attack a little bit more, because they're capable of it, and if you're doing threes, we need to start it from the inside with a driving kick. Some of these threes, I'm shaking my head. My coach would have been freaking mad at me for shooting threes that way. It's just the soup insistence that kid doesn't coach, really. It doesn't seem like it. He can't adjust, but I give him credit. He's adjusted a little bit, but for the most part, I don't think it's kid. I think it's his assistants getting into his ear, and him relenting. Because really, I still want to fire this son of a gun. We don't need him. If anything, he's a hindrance. He still doesn't protect the players, and jumps in with any kind of, ref interference or ref, getting a technical when he needs to. He still doesn't call timely timeouts, even though he was better tonight in the last 2 games. I'll give him where credit's due, but he's a long way. You're talking about his 3rd stop in his 3rd season and almost 9 years of coaching. Come on, man. Just some common sense things. The same with him, the defenses that he uses. He's so stubborn that he plays the same thing. How much drop coverage has he played forever? Fit the strength of your squad with the personnel that's there and adjust your defense and offense to those things. Be a coach, be a little bit innovative.
It's difficult because I subscribe to the notion, we've all let's think of this in terms of kind of our own jobs. We've all worked with coworkers who you got to either treat with kid gloves or a manager where you have to manage up. One of the worst things. I hate managing up, and I seem to do it all the time in my real job. But there's elements of this stuff where, in a given project or a given cycle of work, you can only use certain tactics to get through work situations so many times. And I think that's really the same thing here. I think the kid doesn't go hard enough at Luka publicly, and there's probably very smart political reasons for that. I think as we wind towards the playoffs, we're going to see, and really in the playoffs, I think the Mavericks make the playoffs, we will see kid ratchet up these things that we're losing on, because that's the time to do it. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with that approach because historically, it's really a 1, 2, or 3 seed that wins the NBA championship. The Mavericks are not going to be a 1-2 or 2-2.
No.
They have to figure out something in the long term that's a little more balanced, because this team is capable of winning more games than it has. Now that we haven't seen this team together for a whole year, but they're capable of playing more consistent basketball than they have. I just don't understand why it's particularly difficult sometimes, other than the really simple fact of Kyrie and Luka are not very good or not very focused defensively, and that tends to cause almost all of their problems.
Right. Accountability is a big issue, and some of that comes with a coach. Some of that comes with the team leadership, but also it comes up from the upper levels with Nico.
Sure.
I mean, if you're the general manager and you see your coaches aren't doing their jobs correctly, you need to give them some advice and maybe even ultimatum, and then calling out the players is the right thing to do too, either in private. I would always prefer that one-on-one in the team meetings, but at the same time, it's just a general lack of accountability and waiting for the playoffs. Like you said, it's tough to do because the West is so tight, so competitive. Don't save your moves like, we had the previous coach. He said, well, I'm kind of saving it for the playoffs. There may be no playoffs. We're one injury away from not making the playoffs, with Luka and Kyrie. We're deeper, but we can't take things for granted. The mindset has to be throw everything you have at them now. Don't burn yourself where you're over stressing the players by beating them to death with a message. But I just don't see that passion, That's the thing that gets me. I mean, I'm like you, like you said, I like passionate coaches. Avery was not the best coach in the world. I hated the voice.
Sure.
There's dumb shit he did, but that guy was passionate, Yep. Same thing with our previous coach. He was passionate at times, kind of an asshole, to the media and to the fans. Sure. But at the same time, tactically, you knew where we stood with the guy. He would throw the whole. Donnie Nelson was the same thing. The unpredictability of how the coaches are going to call things. I realize it's a short season. We got a bunch of new players. We don't get much practice time. But come on, we could install 1 or 2 new plays, 1 or 2 new defensive concepts, a week, because the NBA is difficult. Once they understand where you're running your plays, how you're running your plays, how you're running your defense, your predictability, it's going to work against you. Being unpredictable is an asset, and then executing it, to a level that your players' strengths is an asset, and even sometimes just popping it and showing them something different. Man, the thing I like about Rick Pitino that I loved is he threw a bunch of different defenses, but his defenses, especially the presses, wore out his team. You'd have to have a really deep roster to press the way he did and run that many defenses, But still, you could be a little bit more innovative on both sides of the ball. No cuts at all. You're not playing to the strengths of Kyrie with any cuts or backdoor screens or, more flowing motion. If you watch Luka with his country's team, he runs a totally different offense. He runs more of a offense where people are sharing the ball a whole lot more of a European offense. Some of it's motion, but some of it's set plays too. I'm puzzled. I am. Well, when the first good assistant that we had that was European left, I saw a massive drop off on our schemes, especially offensively, and then out of timeouts, he drew some amazing plays, That's one guy that I would have loved to take over as interim coach.
Well, we got who we got right now, and then we'll get to the playoffs. And then I think if the Mavericks were to flame out before then, we may not have to worry about that. But for now, I'm gonna enjoy the win. I'm gonna enjoy the Mavericks somehow never moving in the standings. We're just kind of perpetually gonna hang out in the 8th seed. Which
it's better than last year so far. I can't complain too much.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. All right, man. You got anything else for us?
No, I really appreciate what y'all do. I know it takes a lot of time away from your family and stuff, And I hope Salesforce stock drops a little because I want to buy some.
I run an instance for a nonprofit, so it's Some days I know what I'm doing, and then a day like today where I spent like 45 minutes with one of their support technicians in another country, and I'm like, I am a very dumb person. That's just the way technology goes sometimes. All right, man. Talk soon, all right?
Bye-bye.
All right, coming up next is Brandon. What's going on, Brandon?
Kirk, enjoying the win. How about you?
I did enjoy the win. It's just nice. 4 in a row feels good.
Man, it does. Kirk, and this is probably I don't know. So with the few games remaining, just from a standpoint of watching, would you rather see the Mavs, maybe not really lose a competitive game, but if they do lose a competitive game, would you rather see that or them win kind of uneventful and sloppy wins? Like, to me, I feel like, let me rephrase it. I feel like the Mavs, I would rather see them play competitive and more, conducive basketball than just going out there getting a win. Because right now, the wins are important, but once you get to the playoffs, they're still putting out the same effort. Then, I guess you could say they're getting ready. They might as well get ready to go fishing.
I have a little bit of a roundabout answer for you. So when Derek Harper's on the call, I tend to laugh a lot because he's funny. When Devin Harris is on the call, I tend to learn a lot because he points out what's actually happening.
Yeah.
He talked pretty early in the game about where the Dallas Mavericks defensive breakdowns are happening. There's a number of Mavs fans out there on Twitter. I'm not denigrating anyone's work. If you're going to do work, I respect it. I appreciate some of the videos that people put up. There's this one angry coach on YouTube who likes to talk about how much Jason Kidd sucks. And I've been sending some of these things to different people, both with the Mavericks and kind of around the league who know these things. And a lot of people's base assumptions on where the Mavericks defense is breaking down is wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just wrong. Now, almost all of it has to do with the quality of personnel. Like Tim, Kyrie, and Luka make more defensive mistakes on switches and things like that and help defense. The Mavericks over-rotate a lot. And they also somehow don't defend corner threes sometimes, which just blows my mind. But then they have an instance like tonight where in the third quarter, they really tighten the screws on the Warriors. And I enjoyed it, and I felt like I learned elements of what they're capable of. Now, they're not playing with Steph Curry, so it's a different situation. Mm-hmm. But I think to answer your question, I would rather see a game where I learn what this team is capable of than a game against sort of, I don't know, the Pistons game isn't a great example, but where you kind of run a team off the floor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they've run, and it seemed like a lot of their wins, they just running teams off the floor, hitting good shots, but they're good shots, but they're not quality shots, if that makes sense. Like that corner three, you said it before, it's not a quality shot, and to me, it's just the worst shot.
For the Mavericks?
The one where Josh Green was like really warming up, I don't feel like that's an efficient shot.
I mean, it's unfortunately the corner three is really statistically the most efficient shot in basketball, but who is taking the shot matters a lot. When Josh is not bad at it, PJ might as well be throwing up water balloons while blindfolded because it's just like that dude takes a corner three and I'm like, oh no, where's the ball going to go? Because it's tricky because personnel matters as much as shot quality, which is why, I feel like some of the Mavericks play scheme stuff can be overly simplistic, but I think that's on purpose at times. It goes back to kind of the previous, the discussion about just sort of getting to the playoffs. I mean, this team is capable of doing like the offense. I don't get worried about but that said, Kid has talked about, and he's right, that the offense really fuels the defensive focus. Almost always.
That makes sense. You know what? It seems like, and kind of back to your point is personnel. Like Derrick Jones Jr., they had him trying to shoot it for a while, and they, I think that kind of led to his decline shooting wise. Josh, Tim, definitely that corner three. And it seems like, I could be wrong, but their rotation is kind of like Kyrie as well too. Kid is his plays are very predictable and kind of like the previous person was saying, and I'm glad I haven't heard him in a while. But like you were saying, a lot of it goes kind of goes to coaching. It, to me, who's in his ear? Like, is Jared Dudley, in his ear, or is somebody else in his ear? Like Daryl's been an assistant. Daryl Armstrong, excuse me, he's been an assistant for a while. Shamguy's been an assistant for a while. So I don't think that they would, kind of be in his ear. But it's a new look. Sorry about this.
Good ring.
Yes, that wakes me up in the morning. But it's a new look, group of assistants, and it's kind of like who's really, making the decisions right now. Because Kidd is very laid back, and maybe he's letting Dudley do a lot of it, but I don't know. It just seems like they're not putting out a lot of new stuff. They're kind of predictable.
I think that's on purpose. I've sort of started to settle with that. I think that's let's get to the playoffs and then maybe roll out some new wrinkles. I also think it's why we haven't seen certain devastating wrinkles like Luka Kyrie pick and roll. Now, if the Mavs really get to crunch time, because they still have an ability to get to the 6th seed. I mean, theoretically, they could get to the 5 seed if they actually play well enough and certain things go their way. But for now, they're 1.5 games back from the Pelicans, despite being the 8th seed. Like, there's all it takes is one bad thing to happen. I mean, that's really, and you don't want that to happen to the other teams. But it's like this is why I think the play-in is such a win for the league, despite it not necessarily mattering for the finals. But we're gonna have fun these next few weeks.
And I just got one more question, Kirk. Do you think that with Lively and the new guys being on the team, do you think time on the court together is going to be a significant factor on if they make it far into the playoffs? Like just being around, for example, Gafford and Lively playing big minutes together as opposed to just throwing out the regular rotation or whatever. Do you think that developing that chemistry on the court would factor into how far they make it, or do you think it's just so competitive in the West that it's just another factor?
I think you got to get to the playoffs and then worry about this, because I saw a stat earlier tonight of the play-in teams. The Mavericks, I might have retweeted it. Let me just go see if it was in my profile here. There's just some crazy stats when you take a look at like what the Mavericks have done this season, despite some of the challenges. Nick Angstadt tweeted this earlier today. West 6 through 9, Mavericks, Suns, Kings, Lakers, and the number of 5-man lineups that have played 50 plus minutes together. The Dallas Mavericks have one lineup that has played 50 plus minutes together this season. Okay, season.
It's crazy.
Like, that's insane. And
that's crazy.
So I think you just sort of, and you're not going to get like, I think if you place winning on top of chemistry issues, like not issues, but like chemistry development, I think the chemistry development comes as a byproduct of the winning.
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like what they call it, momentum.
I love this. Grayson Taylor joined the show. I know you have talked about Kyrie maybe needing a day off because of how much he has played recently, Kirk. Well, he didn't need one today. We did talk about that in the first show. Kyrie's was outstanding. Really, probably one of the key elements to why they won tonight. It was really nice to see. All right, man. You got anything else?
No, man. That's it, man. And, I just kind of hope that Luka's looking really good, man. I just kind of hope that I would give him a night off, man. That hamstring's nothing to play with.
No, but I also can't, I just don't trust anything the Mavericks do with injury report stuff, because I'm like, Luka will play through anything because he likes playing, and I think he would want to play against another premier MVP-based candidate, but I don't know. I bet he ends up going, and then I bet they end up making the call right before the game. That's kind of my theory. So,
all right, well, thank you, Kirk.
Of course. Talk soon. All right. Coming up next is my man, Henry. Henry, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on? If for some odd reason it kind of just been fading in and out, let me know how it sounds.
You sound good. Thanks for joining.
Okay. All right. So something Bo brought up. I can't remember. I think it had to do with coaching, but I think we mentioned it earlier. Like, I'd love to have, what's the Partizan? Do you know the coach for Partizan?
Yes, probably, as it's been explained to me, one of the best basketball coaches actively coaching in the world.
Yeah, I would love him if we can somehow steal him away. If not, we can take Pablo, Lucas Real Madrid coach, Igor Kokoskov. I think that was the guy Dang was referring to earlier as well, as far as the assistant. And Kawhi's injury was a thoracic spasm or thoracic spasm, something along those lines, is what you were looking for. But
I just the idea that he fucking left work. Like, it makes me laugh so hard.
I definitely hope he's all right, but I mean, I wish they would have gave KD and Kyrie that same grace when they were in Brooklyn. I mean, the Clippers have been injured for 7 years now, give or take, and they still
Kawhi gets the most. I think it's because he legitimately never speaks, but like he gets the most grace for like just leaving, because it almost feels like this season, because Kawhi's frankly been unbelievable. I question whether he had a leg injury at all at this point. He looks so damn good.
Yeah, who knows? But the other thing, I'll completely off topic though. You're a Salesforce admin. I was thinking about one, I love Salesforce, but two, I was indecisive in between iOS developer and cybersecurity. I think I'm gonna go cybersec. I don't know what it is that kind of keeps pulling me to that field. I fucking love that field. So
a job. That sounds amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love cyber. What was I finna say? Oh, tomorrow's game, not worried about it. I actually think that's going to be not a pretty easy victory, but OKC didn't magically get girth and size in the paint magically since the trade deadline. So between Lively and Gafford, I'm going to be honest, I'm not too worried about OKC. Denver, I do think is a loss, but because Kai is fasting for Ramadan and he can't break his fast until 7:30, that game's at 3:30, so he's going to be playing that entire game on an empty stomach. No fluid, no food. So I think
Can you not drink during Ramadan either?
No water.
Dude, I would fail.
Yeah, it's complete and total discipline. But OKC tomorrow, 9 o'clock late game. He's going to be full from the first quarter. I'm telling you, mark this. We're beating OKC tomorrow again. How do you feel about the next two games?
I mean, I was really keen on the Mavericks winning these 4 games, just so in case things were to go awry during these games, they will have something to fall back on. I would have loved the OKC matchup with Luka and Kyrie together just because of the way they put rim pressure against a kind of thinner Oklahoma City team. I'll be interested to see. I don't think Exum played in the last blowout, the Mavericks, where they just beat the pants off of Oklahoma City. He's such an interesting player to me because I think he really pairs well with Kyrie and Luka as running point guard for both of them. And if the Mavericks were to ask him to play or bear a heavier minute load tomorrow, and let's say he plays like 26 to 28 minutes instead of like 25, like 22 or whatnot, I would give the Mavericks a really good chance because I think asking Kyrie to carry the offensive load as the point guard the whole game only serves to wear him out by the fourth quarter. Particularly, I keep talking about his games played where it's like 18, 19 in a row now, which is the most in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want, I was really delighted to see him play well tonight because I'd been mentioning how I think he needed a nap more or less. And for him to break through tonight was a really nice sign because he broke through while not shooting the ball very well. So what happens if he comes out tomorrow night and hits 3 early threes in the first half? What does that do to the Oklahoma City defense? That has a cascade effect for the rest of the offense that benefits everyone. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Hey, shout out to Dang. He said go cyber. I'm gonna definitely focus on that. Either network security or it's probably something AWS.
Guys, do what I did. I married a smart lawyer who makes money, and so she lets me podcast for a living. No, it's not for a living, but
what was I finna say? Oh, one thing. Have you seen fan 123, the troll in the chat?
Oh, of course.
Okay, cool. I will make a wager. If you get fan 123 up here to show his face, I'll donate $100. He's 150. You set the price, I will fucking donate it. If you can get fan 123 to come up here.
Look, as an attempt at a community builder, there are people, and you see this. You're a Kyrie Irving fan,
right?
There are people who push the Overton window a little too fucking wide. Who are just a little too insane. I would love if anybody joined up here, but I will simply say that I enjoy the fans who are absolutely insane about sports. That's what I mean. Because
He's not even a fan. He's just on here purposely trolling, saying the most outrageous shit for clicks and views. I'm just saying, I got it at 100 to 250. You let me know. I will donate anything in between if you bring fan 123 up here.
He's got a request to come up. I would absolutely do it. But man, what else do you got for us? Anything else before we head out for the evening?
We're going to win tomorrow versus OKC. Whether Tide plays or not versus Denver, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's going to be a close one. Denver is, to be honest, the only threat. If we don't run into Denver until in best case scenario, if we don't run into Denver until the Western Conference Finals, I feel pretty good about it.
They're just really good.
I know Omax probably isn't going to get the minutes, but I would like to see him get it. Oh, and I was listening to some of the Warriors chatting. Oh, if he had Steph and Draymond, again, too small. No one outside of Steph can create their own shot, and we're just bigger than they are in the paint. So I don't think
Luka seems to regular season basketball where Kirk can't kind of scheme to death, which he's very good at. But regular season, the Mavericks tend to beat the crap out of the Warriors. Like Luka's just particularly very mean to them. And it was nice to see. I messaged one of my friends who I know both the podcasts for the Warriors Light Years podcast. And I'm just like, is your defense designed to give up dunks? Like, I've not seen this many Mavs dunks in a game in my life. It was amazing.
Just so small. They're tiny, my guy. Like, I'm serious. Like, we're going to get the 6th seed, not because I think the Mavericks are going to go on a huge winning spree, but because have you seen Phoenix's last 10 games for the season?
They're brutal.
Yeah, so there's no way they'll probably go even maybe, but Phoenix's last 10 games are absolutely brutal to end the season. So just off the strength of that alone, I think we're most likely going to get the 6th seed. I don't think we're going to get the 5th seed, but 6th seed, you can pretty much book it, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I'm higher on this team. Shout out to Dang. Fan 123, get your dumb ass up here, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, man. Talk soon. Have a good one.
See you.
Henry's a good dude. My favorite Kyrie Irving super fan. There are some youths in existence. My favorite is just like, I'm like, when you put your age in your profile, and I'm just like, that means the last time you saw Kyrie play certain basketball games, like you didn't have a driver's license. Like it's and respect. I'm old, so it's an internet. It's basketball. You should be able to say what you want. But I'm just like, the things I remember when I was 13 are a little different. It's just you see the world differently when you're older. Krishna, what's going on, my guy?
Kirk, how are you?
I'm finishing up my second adult beverage, so I'm feeling a little sauced at this point, but functional. I could continue to talk basketball.
That's good. Well, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Obviously, I think some of the talk is like kind of subsided after, a pretty bad spell of games. I'm not going to sit here and like it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was. But I also think like scheduling in the NBA and sports in general is just weird. Like you can tell it feels very random at points. And clearly, like it was a point of the schedule where the team just wasn't playing good basketball, but it was also because you're playing teams that were better than you in most cases, and also just really bad matchups overall. Like I think some of the stuff with Lively is just that he's done so well up to this point. It's easy to forget the guy is still a 20-year-old rookie who, in comparison to most of like guys like Miles Turner and KP, he doesn't have the playing experience or the experience of playing against guys who are going to shoot the 3 ball as much. Like he doesn't have that stretch big experience. And so it makes sense. And Gafford, while maybe I think he'll have the confidence to do it, he's not that kind of center. And I don't think he'll ever be that kind of center. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and like justify those losses. They're still bad losses, but you played against teams that clearly we're going to way out scheme you because of their style of play. But it was good that you got the win against Miami. I was kind of concerned just because Miami, I feel like the Mavs have been okay against Miami in recent years, but Miami is the kind of team where they just are so frustrating because you know that they're almost never going to you're just never going to know if their offense will show up, but
Yes.
they have a baseline level of defense that's frustrating. So it was encouraging that they won that game. And then obviously Detroit is Detroit. Like I don't there's not much to say about them. I find it very funny that Detroit and Washington are now in this competition to see who is going to be the better of the two worst teams in the league, especially like Detroit fans have latched on to like Kuzma, who like Kuzma like tweeted earlier in the season like you wouldn't want to be the team to lose to them. And now Washington I think has less wins than Detroit, which is that is coming to bite you in the bum. Chicago, I still have no idea how we beat Chicago so badly, and then like they had a game against Indiana matchups, I guess. But even tonight, like the team is just, I think sneakily, the team has not been shooting the three ball well. Like not just from the trade deadline, not even just like I know Josh was talking about earlier, the team wasn't shooting well at 29%, right, in these past 4 games. But just in general, I think the team has given up some of its 3-point shooting ability. But I think that compromises come from the defensive end. Now, has that worked? No. I mean, clearly we've seen like in that horrible stretch, like we were just a horrible defense. But, one of the things that was, I don't want to say underrated, but key in that 22 run was just most of the guys who were your defensive, players played that entire season together. And so they were far better in terms of communication and knowing each other. And I think that's something that's just going to take time. Does this mean I still think, coaching isn't an issue? No, I still think to me, it's the primary issue of this team is always going to be coaching. But when your biggest issues are on the court, I think that helps. The Mavericks have never been a team really that have had serious off the court issues, but it's not like, this team is like collapsing everywhere. And I think it's frustrating to think like this, but this is really like, you're building a new roster essentially. Like you've been stuck with so many players for so long, you're building a new roster. And, while I do want to go and just get into contending championship mode, getting those right pieces takes some time. And so, I get like some fans' frustration, like you want to see Omax, you want to see this player do that. And I don't think all of it is wrong. Like I do think sometimes the rotations have been weird, but it's been better these past 4 games. So personally, I don't have that much to complain about. And I think some of the stuff with Omax, like I think it's been positive. I you've talked about it, and I feel like it's been one of the positives I can attribute is kids, and the coaching staff's dealing with young players, I think has been really good in terms of progressing them and getting them to fit into a system and fit in the team and feel like they have a role. I think has kind of been underrated. Like it's not something we necessarily always had a problem with. One, because we just didn't draft well ever. But now that, you have guys who are somewhat talented, it's easy to just throw them in the water. And I don't think it's necessarily that kid doesn't ever trust anyone, but I do think there's a little bit more caution with these guys. And I think, yeah, it's frustrating. I want to see Omax in the NBA, but I think him just getting more accustomed to playing in the flow of an offense, which he's gotten better at. Like I've been watching some of his G League stuff. Yeah, he's shooting a lot better, but he's just making better reads. And the thing that was clearly the issue was he plays at like one pace. He was playing at like 100 miles per hour every single time, and he's slowed down a lot more now. Do I know if that translates? I don't know. It'll only be time that tells. Yeah. But I think that there's clear improvement there. And then I was talking about this with someone like a few days ago. The fact that the team is actually using the G League in a way to develop guys, like, okay, like I get it. You're not always going to get like I don't know. It's very rare you get anyone from the G League, but there's actual investment in the G League. Like I know AJ Lawson's probably not like a world beater or anything, but you actually signed someone from the G League who wasn't a 30-plus-year-old.
Sure. He gives me confidence. They could play him 4 minutes and not die.
Yeah, and it's not like the end of his development, right? And he's a different player from even last season, and he improves. And got guys like Brandon Williams, who's on the 2-way. You have Greg Brown, who's been actually like really great for the Legends. Like he's like the leading. He's like one of the top Blockstead. He's accumulated like most blocks in the league, like averages it. Like they've secretly done a much better job of making the Legends roster just more competent. And in turn, I think it kind of shows like just a change in philosophy overall for this team is just far more balance and far less like, it's what you talked about for so long. There's less one trait guys. There's less guys that are so reliant on Luka every single night to do something. And in a weird way, as much as I like THJ and I know you do too, THJ is kind of the last remnant of that, of someone who is kind of important to this team, but is still a very one trait guy. Now, I think in this past stretch, he's been fine, so I'm not really one to complain about it, but it's clear guys like Dwight and guys like Maxey, their roles are being lessened because you don't need their one trait to be there all the time. You have guys who are far more fluid and can do a few more things. But it's interesting. I don't know where this goes. Obviously, the West is a gauntlet, man. Like I never want to hear people who support teams in the East complain because the West is so stupid. I mean, you said it. How does a 48-win team not make the playoffs?
That's how bad there's been 1 year in 25 years that the East is just a lesser conference because it's run by dumber people and more tense media markets. I think that experience more scrutiny. So you pair that with bad luck in certain instances, and you just run into like stupidity over and over and over again.
It really is. It feels like it should be getting worse. Like I can't even remember. It just feels like, oh, okay, now the West is going to ease up, and now it just gets worse. Like one team falls off, and the next team gets better. Like that's just what happens in the West. But yeah, I'm confident. I mean, obviously tomorrow we'll see OKC.
Yep,
it's a better matchup for us. Obviously, everyone's talked about it. We play bigger. How crazy is it? How crazy is it that we can say the Mavericks are a bigger team than some teams in the league now?
Well, it's different kinds of size. Like I would say that the Mavericks have kind of better center depth now, just because the Thunder don't really have center depth. But the forward depth that the Thunder have is pretty dang big.
I would agree, yeah. But I also think like the Mavs center depth is like pretty rare in general. Like I can't think of a team that I would sit out there and say they have two centers that they're comfortable putting out for 48 minutes a game. Maybe Cleveland, probably.
Yep.
I can't really think of a team, and you could say maybe Toronto, but I would take Gafford and Lively over Podol and Olynyk. So I think it's beneficial, and I think a lot of the three. I think Omax will be ready next season. I
think that's right.
I don't think he'll be like I don't think he's going to come out of the gates like super strong in terms of like, oh, he's going to score like double digits.
Right.
But I think he's far more competent, and I think that helps, especially hopefully Derek Jones comes back next season. But I think it's. In some ways, it's kind of good insurance, right? I think there's just been smarter roster building overall. And so, obviously we'll have to see how the season goes, but I'm just happy. The team is not necessarily, I mean, that's what you want, right? I think everyone just wants to watch their team and feel happy. And so it's been good. I don't really have much to complain. I'm glad, everyone's enjoying it, and hopefully the good times keep rolling.
All right, man. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Take care.
Okay, one last thought on Omax. Then I'm going to go to my guy Mike, who's going to be our final guest, and then I will go to bed in an hour and a half when I'm done editing all this. I had a friend who covers Portland, who I think the Legends must have played the Portland team, and his thoughts on Omax was that Omax was a guy an NBA player playing in the G League, which is interesting. So. All right, coming up now is Mike. He's going to close us out. Mike, what's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Can you hear me?
I can. You sound great. Thanks for joining.
Okay, awesome. I didn't really get to watch much of the game today. I'm still having them on my second screen. So
sure. What were you doing on the first screen? That's much more important to me.
I mean, today it was second screen, as in I was watching my babies. First screen was my kid. But most of the time, me and my wife try to get the either The Wire or just a different movie. We
Nice.
split up Dune, the first one, into a bunch of different parts. Second one was amazing. But anyway,
Good. It was amazing.
Yeah, the first one was just all set up. Second one was just
Sure. I mean, I'm a preposterously large science fiction nerd, and I've read all of the Dune books. We're talking
Dang.
20 plus of them, and they get so fucking weird whenever everyone's like, "I'm ready for the next one." I'm like, "No, you ain't."
Yeah. chill.
What'd you think tonight from your second screen experience and what you were picking up after the game?
All that I could see is Derek Lively being an absolute beast, just doing anything out there. And all I can think about is how good is this guy going to be? How good is he going to be next year is what I'm more worried about. Because, I mean, we're probably going to have a disappointment this season. I don't want to think about that. All I can think about is Derek Lively in the gym all summer, coming back. It makes me feel like we didn't overpay for Gafford. We saw Derek Lively outpacing his role. We need someone to fill that role, and then Derek Lively can come and be an ultra and a Wemby stopper. I don't even know what this guy can do. I mean,
It's great. We have options.
He can like just flip things. It looks like he has English sometimes when he. It's not like he's just dunking. It's just like sometimes he can gather and just finish like under the rim and then just like flick things. I love watching how like balanced he is. I remember like just watching a lot of Dirk interviews talking about how he would work on his balance every off season, how he could never get enough balance to do the Kareem hook shot. But man, maybe he should get in the gym with Dirk. Maybe we should get some Lively at the nail. Some maybe if they're not blitzing Luka, then we can just dump it off to Lively and see what happens. Break it up that way.
Sure. And we've not even seen the man shoot a 3-pointer, and the 3-point shooting was one of the things that pushed him up most people's draft boards.
Supposedly, yeah, I've heard tell
the myth.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I just want to know how good he can be. And then I want the Spurs to trade for Trae Young, because then we would have Trae Young, Shea, and Luka all coming out of the same draft. And then you'd have Lively, Wemby, and what's the OKC guy?
I mean, you're not even talking about Zion, Ja Morant. Like the Southwest Division is a murderer's row of super duper stars. And like the Rockets players, they're going to get somebody good. They have both Brooklyn picks. Like they're going to be incredible. I hate it. I hate the Southwest. I want the Mavericks to go to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, but I think we'll be good. I like my two guys against them. So I don't know. I'm just overly enthused by Lively. I want a mixture of Tyson Chandler and Dirk Nowitzki. That's what I see.
I love it, man. Thanks so much for hanging out. Appreciate you staying up late.
See ya.
All right, talk soon. Okay, guys, we're gonna be back tomorrow night. It's almost midnight now, so I can still say tomorrow night. We'll be back after the Thunder game. Thanks so much for hanging out. Everybody be good and go Mavs.